Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How are you? Are you ready to rock and roll?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. So what I'm going to do is let me first introduce myself. My name is David Schultz. I'm editor-in-chief for the Minneapolis Times. I also happen to be in my other life, I'm a professor of political science at Hamline University. And what we want to do today, in my capacity as editor-in-chief, is let's do an interview. Let's do a dialogue. Find out about why you're running for mayor and a variety of things. And just to let everybody know, what we're going to do is record this, and we'll put no editing. I'm not a video editor, so if the whole thing unedited goes up, we'll have it up in a couple of days on the Minneapolis Times site. I will send you a link also so that you can use this for your purposes, also for your campaign, if that sounds fair.
Wonderful. That sounds great. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Good. So thank you very much for sitting down with me. And let me just sort of start with like the most basic question I think in the world is tell the residents of Minneapolis who you are and why you're running for mayor.
Yeah, my name is Jazz Hampton, and I'm thrilled to be running for mayor of Minneapolis. I've lived within, I'm sitting here in my house right now on a Sunday afternoon. I've lived within about 7 or 8 miles of where I'm sitting right now for my entire life. So I've born and raised in this area. And frankly, I know the potential that I've seen our city have throughout my entire life. And I know that we have an opportunity to fully live out that potential. And we just haven't quite done that in recent years. And so I'm thrilled to move our city forward in a way that I know that we can do that, whether we're talking about affordable housing or public safety for sure, the economics of our city, and then, of course, all of the other things from climate change and beyond. But my background is unique, I think, in this race. Obviously, I have never held elected office before, but there's a lot of things that I think qualify me to be the leader of this city. And frankly, I think we need a really strong leader in this moment. I'm a parent of 3 Minneapolis public school children. We haven't had a mayor that actively has children in the public school system in over 25 years. And I think the way I will show up as mayor for our students will be different. I'm a husband, or my wife and I, it's our 3 kids, 8, 5, and 4. So we're busy. Beyond that, my undergrad was in computer science. And then straight after getting my undergrad degree at the University of St. Thomas, I went to law school. My first day of law school, I was actually still 21. While I was in law school, I acted as a public defender, both in Anoka County and Ramsey County. And then I graduated and I tried to pay off some of my student loans by doing corporate law. And so I did that for several years. I was in downtown Minneapolis for the last 5 or so. But then after the tragedy of George Floyd, I quit my corporate job with the permission of my wife, of course, to create the business that I currently run. The business is called Turn Signal. It is a platform, an app that connects drivers to an attorney on a video call instantly when they've been pulled over, to de-escalate the interaction and to ensure everyone gets home safely. It started as an idea in North Minneapolis, or Northeast Minneapolis, I should say. And now we're nationwide, serving over 200,000 folks, and doing really important work. And I now teach entrepreneurial finance at the University of St. Thomas, preparing our next generation of students as well. Beyond that, because have too much free time, I'm on multiple boards. I've been on the Catholic Charities Board for over 5 years, Minneapolis Foundation for several years, Great North Innocence Project for a couple of years, where I've also represented wrongfully incarcerated folks from Minneapolis as well. So, I give that background not as like a read of the resume, but I think it speaks to what I care about, right? It speaks to the public safety. It speaks to the way criminal justice system interacts with our residents. Of course, affordable housing and the homeless pervasive issue we're having in Minneapolis with Catholic Charities, building a small business, being a teacher, being a parent. It's all of the things that I think make me the right person for the moment. And frankly, it's a moment where I think we need to get everyone on the same page, sit down in a room with people that I disagree with in city leadership and say, I still will work tirelessly to move the city forward, even if we disagree on things. And that's what I'm excited to do for our city.
So tell me about your decision making to run for mayor, because you said, "Why this is first time you're ever considering public office." What came into your mind as to why you decided to run?
Yeah, I think one of the first things was I just felt the gridlock. I felt like I was opening the paper too often and I was seeing headlines about leadership disagreeing on things than about the policies or progress that we have moving forward. And I felt, again, my business has been in social justice and things that are very progressive in nature, right? From the platform that we've created to representing wrongfully incarcerated people. I'm also a professor of finance that understands how to run a business, and I have run one very successfully within our city as well. It's a balance that I feel like so many residents feel like we need struck. And then here's the really important thing: the ability to get people that aren't perfectly aligned on either of those things to the table to push things forward. That is when I saw the gridlock we have, I felt like not only am I a person that can get all the folks to the table if I was in the office, but also a person that could win the seat as well in a ranked choice city where we have people with very firm bases on ends of the spectrum, and then a lot of people sitting in the middle saying, I just am hoping to have someone that can bring everyone to this table.
Okay, great. All right, so people always start with the negative. We're going to start with the positive. Tell me what you think are let's say, 3 or 4 of the 5 best things or strengths of the city of Minneapolis.
Yeah, I think the way that we have already built mobility infrastructure. There's a reason that we're the most like bikeable city in the country or the world. It's because we were really intentional about building that, and I think we've gotten it to a really good place. I think our park system is incredible, and we are consistently heralded for having a successful park system as well. And then just personally, I think the way that we in person show up for our neighbors is better than all of the other cities that I can think of. When we show up for our neighbors, it isn't passive, it's active. We actively want to be a part of the solution. And frankly, I think that's what leads to part of the conflicts. We want to show up for our neighbors so much, and we disagree on how to effectively do it. And then that's when a conflict starts. It's never, I don't want to help. It's, I want to help and this is my way, or I want to help and this is my way. And that actually generates the conflict. And so the irony is, even a negative that I could think of down the road is based out of a positive, which is we are really trying to help people in our city. And frankly, that's why I've never left. That's why I love this area, and you can't pull me away from it.
Wonderful. Good. Okay. So then let's flip it around. I mean, from what your description, the city's got some good strengths here. What are the same thing? Flip it around. What are the main challenges that the city's facing? You know, and eventually we're going to get to where you fit into this. But as you see it, the challenges that Minneapolis is facing now.
Yeah, I think public safety, even when I talk to, and I base these on my current conversations, public safety is one of the number one things that I hear when I'm talking to our residents. And listen, here's how I view our public safety system right now. My car has been stolen from in front of my house 3 times in the past 5 years. My house was broken into over the summer, my garage was broken into in the summer. They stole like my wife's bike and some of that other stuff. Even when my car was stolen a couple weeks ago, 911 rang for 2 minutes. We need to feel as if, especially the progress that we could have generated from 2020, we just haven't got to where I think any of us want us to be. And I want to be really clear. We have improved. We have more officers than we did in 2021. But people aren't feeling safe, and aren't feeling public safety show up in the way that we hope. And again, I will say I'm not saying that certain specific crime statistics haven't gone down. What I am saying is, if you ask people, it's the number one thing they'll say. And so we have to be respectful of that it isn't showing up in the way that we hope. But here's the other end of that spectrum as well. I've built a organization around de-escalating these interactions, and my security alarm went off in my house when my wife was out of town. And when it did, the security company called and they said, we're gonna dispatch police if you don't remember the password. And I couldn't remember it. And they did. And so they said, we're dispatching police. And what I did was I ran in my basement and I hid, and I called my wife and I said, Courtney, I'm hiding in the basement because they're sending police, and I'm nervous about what they're going to do when they see my body on our front doorsteps in Linden Hills. Right. And both of those things are true around public safety. Sure. And frankly, to pretend like both aren't true, I think is disingenuous. Okay. So we have to address more. We have to have more police officers within our city. And we also have to build trust within our city of our local law enforcement and improve that relationship. That is vitally important. And of course, when I talk to officers, they have a list of 50 things on their plate and they want it to be 20. And so how do we take some of those things off their plates and allocate it to other parts of public safety? So that was a very long answer on the first one, which is...
That's a good... Okay, but the reason why we do a longer interview is to give you a chance to get your argument out.
Yeah. And then, the next one is affordable housing. And I think, being on the board of Catholic Charities for 5 years and watching the work firsthand, I think when you say affordable housing, people think homelessness and encampments. And that's obviously a part of it, but we have to address that. We have to have housing first solutions with wraparound services directly in proximity. We can't house someone in Northeast Minneapolis and expect them to get drug addiction services in North Minneapolis and mental health services in Southwest. It just isn't realistic. So we have to have housing first solutions with proximity to services right there. We have to grow that. The next thing is also affordability of people who are making some money. Maybe they just graduated from college and they just started working at Target and they're making 50 some odd $1,000 a year, but they can't live in the North Loop where a lot of their friends do, or they can't live in Uptown where a lot of their friends do. The affordable housing stretches to across a wide spectrum within our city, and all the way down to our seniors that are trying to age in place with dignity. I just talked to a tenant that said, or a landlord of a townhome. And they said if it weren't for the rent from the next door neighbor, they couldn't stay in that home as they're trying to enter into retirement. We have to ensure that we make sense of the housing situation that we're currently within. And the last one I'll say is just the economic vitality of our city. The tax base, we're raising taxes more and more. And we can say it's a 6.8% tax levy, but in certain neighborhoods, that's an average. In certain neighborhoods, it's much higher than that. And it's affecting people in a real way. And then at the same time, if the tax base from downtown, uptown, and the connective corridors, whether it's 38 and Grand or someone else, if those keep deteriorating, then the tax base is going to continue to be pushed onto to homeowners who, if they own properties that they're renting, are also going to increase the rent, and the cycle continues. And that also ties into the local businesses. It's really hard to grow a business right now. And as a city, we have to make it as feasible as possible, because it's not just about the community you build when you have Clancy's on the corner serving up food in Kingfield. It's the people who are employed by that business. It's the third place that exists for people to go to as well. Those are the economic vitality portions that we really have to focus in on in the city of Minneapolis as well. So public safety, affordable housing, and the economic vitality of our city would be the three things that I think we can really dive into.
Okay, so this may be a related question here. So let's say, congratulations, you get elected mayor. I'm not sure if I want to ask this as what would be your top three priorities, or if I want to ask what would be the first three things that you would do. And maybe I'll ask both of those here. And maybe you've already answered on the priorities, but so it could be something different. So top three priorities or first three things you would do, or maybe both you answer.
Yeah, the first thing I think I have to do, again, I lead an organization right now, and you have to appoint the right people to the right roles and ensure they're doing a really great job. And if they aren't, you have to move on from those individuals or coach them into doing better in the role as well. And I think we are really missing a strong manager in that way, someone who's had that experience. And I do. And so I think one of the first things you have to do is appoint the right folks, and then also sit down with the city council members and understand their needs. Because, and I mean this, I hear people's critique of the city council a lot. And what I keep telling folks, especially folks that live around me here in Ward 13, is when I went to Ward 6 and I was at that ward convention, it was 96% renters or so. Of course, they're going to have different needs, and the representative that represents them is going to be bringing different needs to the table. That's their job, to be the voice of that ward. It's the mayor's job to enact the policies that will help the city writ large through a filter that distills down all of the things that are brought from the city council members. And so the first thing I will do with the city council members is set a consistent meeting schedule where I can hear from them and hear their voices and understand what their voice as the leader of their ward is telling me their needs are, so we can build policy around that. And listen, it comes with guardrails. If there are bumpers that need to be put in place, they need to be put in place. Say that's outside of the realm of possibility, or that's outside what I think we can do. But it's actually the meeting and doing the work that I'm excited to do, and I think that I can help with in this city. So appointing the right people, ensuring that am on the right page with city council members and that we have a consistent meeting schedule going forward. And then the last thing that I would do in the first 100 days is consistent community outreach and be present with our residents. All too often, I feel like they feel like their voices aren't being heard. And so setting up a consistent town hall or community forums where I can hear from folks in all wards will be another part of the work that I really believe that we have to do. All of that distills down to looking at the budget and saying, how are we going to appropriately allocate dollars and manage the money really well? I was just talking to someone about, I have a head of marketing in my organization, and she says we're going to ensure that we get 2,000 new users on the platform. And in order to get 2,000 users this year, I need to have $2,000. And we allocate the budget. And then if we're halfway through the year and we haven't made it halfway to the 2,000 people goal and we've spent half the money, we reassess and we say, what has been going wrong? And is it something we've tried that isn't working? And do we have to shift what we're doing? Or is this not a good spend of the dollars? Is the return on investment not the right thing? I don't just say it didn't work, here's another $2,000. You have to be intentional about managing in that way. And that is something people always ask me, what are you going to cut to get X, Y, and Z done? And my response is, how are we going to manage and look at the dollars we're spending to ensure it's reaching the goal to then make those decisions?
Okay, good. Again, you're a business person, so you'll understand this question here. I'm not sure if I want to say after 1 year, 2 years, or 4 years, but I'll pose the question here. What would be the measure of success for you as mayor? So if the voters are looking at you, how would they know if you're successful?
Yeah, I'll spread these across a lot of the different. So around public safety, not only the amount of crimes are dropping, but the amount of officers that we have on staff, the amount of build out we have within public safety beyond just police officers, the 911 response time, the amount of crimes that are actively happening. All of these numbers should be trending down. Right. And not just from where we are now, because I get a little miffed at this. It's not from how are we doing compared to last year. It's to what should be a normal baseline. Right. And so we shouldn't always compare ourselves to 2021 for crime. That was really, really high. And so if we go a little down from what 2021 was, we still aren't in a very good place. We should be back towards where 2020 or 2017 was, right? And so judge me based on the longer tail, not just the very recent history, because I think it'll be easy to drop a little bit. When it comes to businesses, how many businesses are closing? How many business licenses have we renewed and how many new ones have opened? Are we still in a 9% decrease of amount of restaurants that are present within our city? And why is that happening? All the way down to directly how residents are feeling as well. You can get the pulse of businesses from those numbers, but we need to also understand from our residents, are you feeling safer? Because here's the thing, you could do all of the numbers around policing, around improving public safety. But if people aren't feeling that, if they feel like when they call 911, the crime isn't being addressed or solved or someone's going to come to their house, then we also aren't meeting our goals and metrics in that way. And the last one I'll say is about affordable housing and specifically a lot of the homelessness that we're seeing within our city. The numbers of individuals sleeping outside every day should be down. And not only should it be down, it should be down a significant percentage. And it isn't because we've pushed them into a different area. It's because they have voluntarily and willingly gone to additional solutions that we are providing within our city. It's not because if they're on Xerxes or under a bridge that counts as Hennepin County territory, not our city, right? We have to ensure that is improving. And here's the last thing that I really believe in. We haven't touched on this at all, and I should have. Our public schools are doing better. Listen, if you're a Black student in the city of Minneapolis, there's a 40% chance that you do not graduate high school in 4 years. It's unacceptable. As a parent in the Minneapolis Public School system, I'm literally looking at my kid's school out of the window right now. We have to do better for our students, our teachers, and the teachers union. If that is happening, we are going to continue to see a drop in students, and with less students comes less funding. Just to anyone watching that doesn't know the numbers on the geek level that I now and have known, there's about 23,000 children in the city of Minneapolis that do not go to our public schools. And for every one of those 23,000 students, the city receives $14,000 per student from the state level government to provide services to those students. That's hundreds of millions of dollars that are not coming in because we aren't reaching the level of education that we hope that we should. So I want to work hand in hand with teachers to say, how are we going to move this from a 60% graduation rate for those students to the same level of everyone else within the city, their counterparts, and across the board, moving the whole thing up. People always say like a rising tide will lift all boats, but some of the boats right now have a hole in it, and we have to plug the hole while we rise the tide as well.
Yeah, I want to stay with this because, in your introduction here, when you're saying, what your background is, you pointed out the fact that, what was it? You're going to be the first parent to have children in the school district in at least a generation or so.
25 years since we've had
children. Now, now, of course, that technically per se, the mayor and the city government doesn't have responsibility for the schools. Okay. But nonetheless, I think you're capturing it here is that even if you don't, as mayor, you're still sort of responsible, for the quality of the school. So tell me a little bit more about how you'd work with the school district, and how you'd work, with teachers or educators, or maybe even the administrators of the school system, because in some sense, you really are in it together.
I could not agree more. And yes, it's a point that I think general public doesn't know. If they think schools in Minneapolis, they think the mayor is directly responsible for the budget and other things, and they're not. But here's what I believe. If students are showing up and they're going to class and they're going home and mom and dad are working 2 or 3 jobs, or that student is working a job and they aren't getting the homework done, or things aren't happening, we can do things post-school to help. What are the post-school programs that we can implement to help some of these students that are falling between the cracks, and frankly, the cracks that were there intentionally at some point in time? Mm-hmm. We have to actively ensure that we are supplementing the school day with the additional services to raise folks out of that position. Okay. It's something that we absolutely have to do. And then when it comes to funding, again, this is a cycle. If a school or the administration is saying we don't have enough money, and we can only get more money by getting more kids, and we only get more kids if we're doing better, how do we make it better in these schools during the day? And so, yes, we have to say, what can we do from supplementing costs of the rising costs of the buildings? We have a lot of buildings that are half full, and how do we ensure that the costs that are being attributed to our school system is not laying so heavily upon them? And frankly, as mayor, I will go and advocate to the county and state our intergovernmental relationships and telling them that we need to do better for our students. I will be our biggest advocate. And admittedly and selfishly, it's because my kids are there. Okay. I cannot wait to go to the county and to the state and say, we need to do better. Give us a boost right now. Because if we get a boost now, and we personally, the city agrees to supplement outside of the school day as well, we can raise us out of this situation. And now when my vision for the future for 4 years is when people are searching on Zillow for their next house because they just got a job at Best Buy or Target, they're looking at the school district and saying, wow, Minneapolis Public School is doing great. I would love to move there. And what I know is contribute economically to our city as well. Again, just because you're a 16-year-old living in Minneapolis does not mean that I am not the mayor for that individual as well. And so I need to show up for them too.
Very good. Now, you touched on this a little bit before. We're going to shift gears a little bit here. And we know that for the last few years, there's been a very, I think, contentious relationship between the mayor and city council. And I know you talked a little bit about sort of more communication, but do you want to elaborate upon that a little bit in terms of how you would address that? What we say right now has been, I think, fairly for the last few years, again, a contentious relationship.
Yeah, what I definitely don't want to do is point fingers and blame at how the relationship got here, because we all know that it's here, right? I've sat down and had coffee. I think I'm the only candidate that can say this, with a meeting or coffee or individual one-on-one with every single city council member. It's important to me because I want to work with them as partners. And I hear stories from the spectrum of council members. And some of the ones in which there's conflict with the mayor, they'll say things like, I brought a proposal, and I learned later in the news that the proposal wasn't going to be going forward, instead of a meeting about going back and forth. And then that council member is hesitant to bring new proposals forward and does it. Again, I'm not going to say which side is right or wrong or any of this true or false, but I will not be the mayor that is going to prevent these conversations from happening, even if I disagree. If I disagree on the thought on shoveling sidewalks, Let's sit down, and maybe there's a smaller version of this, or a targeted group that have ADA accessibility needs that we can talk about. Right? I will continue to come to the table on these conversations because I want to move the ball forward, and that's what I tell them when I meet with them. When I meet with city council members that I disagree, I didn't seek the DSA endorsement because that is not a platform that I directly align with. But my job is to work with people who have. And so how do you constructively do that, right? If they have sought the endorsement and their ward is elected them year after year after year, my job then is to work with them and to find out how I can bring them to a table where we can find some kind of path forward successfully. And to elaborate a little bit on this, and I've used this example before. My dad, before he worked at the post office for his whole career, but before that, he was a Green Beret paratrooper. And when you jump out of plane, he's jumped out of hundreds and hundreds of planes, and he's only used his reserve parachute once. To me, a veto is a reserve parachute. And there's times that the mayor has used his veto in the last several years. I know he's used it more than to ever or typical in the last 12 months or 24 months. And I would have used it in a lot of ways as he did. But here's my issue. I would not get to the place where I had to use my reserve parachute. Because what people don't know is when you jump out of an airplane, you open the parachute and you land and you repack that parachute to use it again next time. It's your job to repack your parachute and to ensure that it's going to open correctly. And in this analogy, the packing of your own parachute is going to the city council members. And if I would have vetoed a specific policy, people always say, would you have vetoed this thing or this thing that was presented? And my answer is I wouldn't have been voting on that piece of paper. I would have gone back in the room and we would have come out finally with a piece of paper that I wouldn't feel like I had to use my reserve parachute on. But don't get me wrong. I'm so happy that I have the reserve parachute because it could save my life. But I think we've been overusing it by not properly packing our primary parachute in the first place.
All right. Believe it or not, on September 19th is when early voting starts for the race. Okay. As you know, Minneapolis uses ranked choice voting. So 2 questions here. What are you going to tell voters is why they should make you your first choice? But then what are you going to say to those to say, make me your second choice if I'm not your first choice in ranked choice voting? So we'll start with the first choice. Why should voters make you your first choice? Make them your first choice.
I would love for them to make me their first choice because I am the person that can meet the moment. I've had the experience across all of these platforms and places that can set us up for success within the city. And I can be the person that can take a fractured group of folks with differing viewpoints and bring them all together to move the city forward. And of course, if I have to use the reserve parachute, I will, but I don't think I'll have to because I think that I am the person that can collectively bring us all forward. From folks who live around me here in Ward 13 to folks in North Minneapolis that I was at church with earlier this morning, all the way to folks in Ward 11, where I was also at this morning. I am the person that can collectively bring us together. And that is why you should rank me first, because ranking is about who you hope for the most, not who you think will win the most, who you hope for the most. And that's the way ranked choice voting is supposed to work. And if you are already dedicated to someone, maybe the mayor is your cousin or your brother or another person in the race, he's your pastor or he's your friend. Here's my pitch. I believe no matter who you are, I am the logical second choice in that conversation as well. If you appreciate what the mayor has tried to do around fiscal choices and responsibilities, I teach finance. That's what I know as well. If you believe in another candidate because they have progressive ideals that will help show up for marginalized communities, I've represented someone who was wrongfully incarcerated for 19 years, and I've built a platform around addressing some of these social interactions. I am the person that can meet the moment for all of these issues and frankly bring the rest of the city along with. And I do believe to any of these people that you should fully rank your ballot, because if I go to a friend's house and I say, I'm really thirsty, can I have a green LaCroix? And they say, I'm sorry, we're all out, and they hand me a Guinness, I'd be like, what are you doing? I asked for a green bubble water. And they say, oh, well, you didn't give me a second choice, so I just gave you a Guinness. It's probably the opposite of what you wanted in this moment, right? That is what happens when you don't fully rank your ballot. Sure. You should say, oh, you don't have green LaCroix. Do you have a yellow one? I'll take that. And if you don't have a yellow one, I guess I'll take a Coca-Cola, right? Like then you won't get the vast opposite of what you're hoping for. Mm-hmm. But again, in to start with, you shouldn't vote for who you think is going to win. You should vote for who you want to win the most, and that's how you should rank your ballot.
All right, good. Okay, so as we sort of start to wrap this up here, sort of like three final questions here. Is there anything else that you would like to say or talk about that we haven't had a chance to cover in this interview?
I don't think so. I think we covered the bases really well. I really appreciate all of the questions and the directness of them, because I think that people really want to hear this. And frankly, it's so important to also hear the explanation of things as well. To hold up a placard that says, "Are you for rent stabilization or not?" doesn't allow you to follow up, and for me to follow up and say, well, no, I don't support rent stabilization. However, I do understand that we have a deep housing need right now, and here are the other tools that I think that we should implement in that space. It allows people to fully digest people's answers and get a better understanding of where they stand.
Yeah, I mean, the way I describe you, I think I might have described this to your campaign manager. I said, no surprise questions, just the questions that I think the average voter wants to ask you. Okay, so where can they get more information about you or your campaign? If they need to learn more, and I say, I'm kind of interested, where next? Where can they go?
Oh, I love this question. First of all, jazzformayor.com, FOR mayor.com. But even better, if you use any form of social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, every single day, I post a 90-second video explaining what kind of mayor I'll be and what I plan on doing in my first 100 days. And you can just sit there and watch those 90-second videos until your heart's desire. It's a great way also just to get to know me. You'll see my kids in it. You'll see my family. That is another great way to find out more information. So on any social media platform or jazzformayor.com.
Okay. How can they get involved? If people are watching this and they say, I'd like to get involved, what can they do?
At jazzformayor.com, at the very top, we have a tab that you can click to volunteer to become a part of the work that we're doing. If you use Mobilize, there's a whole bunch of events. In fact, today I'm going to Linden Hills Park. It's Sunday, September 14th today, but I'm going to Linden Hills Park and we're having an event called Playground and Policy, because so many parents are cut out from a lot of this process, and we're going to let the kids play, and I'll just sit there and talk over a green LaCroix and talk about some of the policy. So come to some of those events, because again, whether you're not sure who you're going to rank first or whether you have someone you're not sure about second, I would love the opportunity for you to get to know this campaign. I can't tell you how many folks I've run into that thought they knew how they were going to vote, and maybe their mind has changed a little bit, or now they know who's the second. And I would love the opportunity to do that at one of our many events that we have coming up in the next few weeks.
Excellent. Good. So we've been talking to Jazz Hampton, who's running for mayor of Minneapolis. My name is David Schultz, editor-in-chief of the Minneapolis Times, and I hope all of you have enjoyed the interview today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, David. Thank you.